tell you one thing that's COVID-19 has proved to me and give me, I mean, I was always confident before. I'm even more confident about our business model. Okay. Look at the US. The US is probably the most mature market, and it's got fantastic online presence and systems out there. Yet less than 1% of customers today, 25 years on, buy a car online. Bang. They just don't do that. And if ever that was going to come under pressure to be tested, it was during the COVID-19 period, because we went into the lockdown period and manufacturers, without their retail networks, could not deliver vehicles. And for the first 3 weeks, every manufacturer, every dealer group, including ourselves, sat there saying, how do we start making the machine work without, but you can't. It's not easy. It's very difficult to operationalize, because who's going to do the handover? Who's going to do the invoicing? Who's going to do the valeting? Who's going to do the PDI? Who's going to get the parts for the technician to do the PDI? Who's going to provide the plates? Who's going to call the customer? Who's going to do the counting of the money? I mean, it's very, very difficult. Who's going to handle the part exchange? So the actual the operationalization of making this work is not easy. It's very difficult to execute. So I actually think I've taken a lot of comfort, because if any opportunity was ever going to come around for people to try and go direct, you would have seen it now. But it's not easy, not on a scale basis. If you're Tesla and you're not selling significant volumes, you can do that. That's their model, and they've set that up from day one. But when you're some of the brands that we deal with, and you look at the number of customers that they have in their vehicle park, it's very difficult to do.
Yeah, I think, like you were saying, all those who questions, it still always comes back to the same thing, which is it's about people, isn't it? It's it's a bit of a cliche. It's a people business. Most businesses are people businesses, but this definitely is.
And a lot of experts' predictions were sort of suggesting this is the joys of please wash my hands. Okay. This is Alicia, we're on the air here, but tell Mummy I'll be coming for dinner later.
Tell her not to worry. It's not the BBC.
There you go.
You're okay.
This is the joys of home working.
Yeah, I think that's the reality for so many people at the moment, though, isn't it? Kind of juggling that kind of home life balance.
Daddy, can you wash your hands? Daddy, can you wash your hands and come in for tea?
It's great. Good advice, to be fair.
Over the last 8 years, I've worked with some amazing businesses, both nationwide and global. And one of the things that I've noticed is that there's so many brilliant people in the businesses that deserve some recognition. This is the channel that showcases the best dealers in the automotive industry and gives them the recognition that they deserve. I'm Tanisha Stafford, co-founder of Armchair Marketing, and this is the Armchair Show. And I'm going to pass you over to our very capable host, Mark Ellis. How's it going, Mark?
Really well, thanks, Tanisha. Joining you again from my home studio remotely, as we have been over the last few weeks. I'm joined today, of course, by my co-host, John. John, how are you doing at the office in the
great.
studio?
Thanks, Mark. We've got an incredible studio here that we're lucky to have, and it's great to be able to use it to still speak to the people in the industry.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed we'll be back in there soon with some guests.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until then, obviously, we are doing everything remotely, and I'm delighted to say we've got a really special guest on today, and we'd like to say hello to Daksh Gupta from Marshall Motor Group. Dash, how are you doing?
Hi everybody, hope you're all well. Good to see you guys. Thank you for inviting me, first of all.
Thank you for coming on.
I'm not sure about the special guest bit, but I'm sure I've been back of the queue somewhere really, so scraping the barrel guest more likely.
Not at all. I think the main reason you were late this week was because of the all the technical problems we've had with Skype and Zoom, but we've got there. We nothing stops the Armchair Show. That's the main thing.
Well, you had the main man Richard on a few weeks ago. So.
We did, but he did a fantastic insight from him. But it'd be great to get some thoughts from yourself as well, Dash. And obviously today we're going to focus on leadership and attracting new talent. But I think perhaps before we get there, for the very few people that don't know who you are and what you do, I wonder if you could give us a little bit of a potted history of Dash and what you do.
Okay, so I'm Group Chief Executive for Marshall Motor Holdings PLC. So I am now in my 13th year as CEO, which is quite unusual, I guess, because most CEOs generally sort of stick around I think 4 years is a sort of norm. I guess I've kind of gone through 3 lifetimes on that basis, and I'm just amazed the board haven't found me out yet, I guess, really, at that stage. But no, I mean, it's a fantastic company. I was previously with Ridgeway, obviously a company that we bought in 2016. So I guess a bit like the sort of the shaving thing. I like the company so much I bought it in the end. Then previously I was with Inchcape for about 7 years. So that's most of my career sort of outlined there. So it's me.
Fantastic. And what was your journey to Marshall? Where did you start educational wise? Where did it right at the beginning start for you?
Okay, so how did I get into the auto? It's probably an interesting story actually. So I actually was studying at Oxford Brookes. So I was studying computer science, software engineering, and as a sort of Saturday job, I started washing cars on a Saturday. So I did that for 2 weekends, £15 per day. And the owner of the company said to me, why are you washing cars? And it would have been 1989, I guess, somewhere around then. And he said, you seem like a bright guy. Why are you washing cars? And I said, well, just it's sort of, my mum and dad sort of believe that I should earn, as my dad used to say, learn the value of a pound. So, they pay for my university fees and they pay for my accommodation, but then anything else thereafter, because I don't get much of a grant, is down to me. So they want me to get a job, which I've got no problem with, and I think it's a good thing. And I always had sort of Saturday jobs, sort of in my 16, 17 year when I was sort of 16 or 17, and back then, which would be in the late 80s, car showrooms didn't open on a Sunday. So the owner of the company, a guy called James French, who's still in the industry, has got a 4x4 operation in Oxfordshire. He said to me, look, why don't you open up on a Sunday for us? And no one will come in, no one will buy, it'll be really quiet, and take some inquiries for us. Of course, first, so I'm thinking, no one's going to come in, you're going to pay me to do this, and means I can get away from my digs and probably do some studying. How hard can that be? Of course, you know what happened the first Sunday. It was really busy. And of course, there I'm on my own, haven't got a clue what I'm doing, still don't have a clue today, and managed to sell 3 cars on the first Sunday, just by ringing the owner and saying, look, what do I do? The customer's interested, and he was walking me through what to do. And then he said to me that sort of following me, I tell you what I'll do is I'll guarantee you get £15 for coming in, but for every car that you sell, I'll pay you £20. So I'm thinking I can't lose. So all of a sudden, I was starting to earn commission for selling cars. Albeit looking back now, God, James, you nickled and dimed me at £20 looking back now. But anyway, but actually it was fantastic. So that's how I got into the industry. And then when I left university in 91, 92, I just basically thinking, what shall I do? And I really enjoyed the cars. I think most guys generally like cars. So I enjoyed cars, enjoyed people. And I thought, actually, this looks like something I could go and do. And I was only going to, if I'm honest, I was only going to do it for a couple of years and then go into IT, something like that. But I really enjoyed it, and then progressed. And, sort of by 25, 26, I was running a dealership. I joined Inchcape in late 99, and then I was a franchise director there at sort of 31. So I was really lucky. Worked with some amazing leaders, big names in the industry, and I've just learned a lot. And then I was CEO at Marshall at 37. So... Wow. So I'm still in my 40s, which I quite like. I'm holding on to for another 6 months.
Yeah, we can wipe out this year as well, so this year doesn't count. You won.
That's true. I can go backwards.
Yeah, why not? I mean, that's a fascinating kind of classic story, isn't it? Going from washing cars to where you are now. Do you think the route into the industry can still be that classic, or are people generally taking different routes into the industry these days?
I think listen, the one great thing with this industry, it doesn't matter about your education. It doesn't matter about your background. It doesn't matter if you're, mixed race. It doesn't matter if you're, it doesn't, and none of that is academic. I mean, I think what's fantastic in terms of what's going on right now is the diversity agenda, something which we're really passionate about at Marshall. And, I'm really proud of the sort of representation we've got in terms of diversity on our PLC board. If I look at our sort of the real senior management within our organisation, sort of the directors, our PLC board, and sort of people who have accountable function responsibilities. So be that IT, be that compliance. I'd say we've probably got about 35% on our female. So that's absolutely fantastic. So I think, it doesn't matter what your background is. I think the number one thing for me is it's about that. What's your mindset? What's your attitude like? And there is no other industry, I believe, where you can genuinely go from car cleaner to CEO, as long as you've got the right attitude. So I think that makes a big difference personally. So I still think that's possible. And you look at some of the guys who are leading some of the big automotive groups now, they've all got a huge background. I mean, a huge varying degree of backgrounds. I mean, there's a lot of people who've come from the finance route now. So if you look at a lot of the CEOs, they've come from finance. But you look at guys like Darren at Sytner. He's a guy who's worked his way through the ranks, and I think it's quite personally, I think it's a good thing to see people come through the ranks, because I think people like to see that, because it gives people something to aspire to, because I think people then want to see, actually, I can be a Saturday salesperson and a car cleaner and work your way up to the CEO. So, you don't have to, I think, when you see people come bang straight in at that level and they've got no experience, then, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think, there's lots of people who've got fantastic experience there, but I think I think the other thing it does is when you work your way through the ranks, I can say to people with absolute conviction, I know what it's like to work 7 days a week. I know what it's like to, go out on a Saturday night and then go into work on a Sunday morning with a hangover. I know what it's like when customers cancel. I know what it's like running a dealership. I know what it's like on service reception. I know what it's like handling customers, So I think having that, being the ability to relate to people, I think is quite important as well.
Absolutely. Is it true that education doesn't play a huge role in it? Because obviously, I suppose if anyone's watching this and they're literally at the start of their journey, or they may just be coming out of education, it seems like such a big leap, doesn't it? Even if you do start, as you say, right at the bottom rung of the ladder. Is there any kind of what role does education play in particular in getting people into the industry?
I think it's helpful. I don't think it's the be and all. I mean, I don't think I was particularly academic at school. I was okay. I don't think I was, I certainly wasn't I definitely wasn't an A-star student. I was a kind of, I was an okay student. If I'm honest, looking back now, I think I was quite lazy, if I'm honest, at school. I think, and at university, I think I could have done a lot better if I had the attitude that I have today. And probably in the last maybe 20 years, when I was at school, university, I'm pretty confident I would have been an A-star student. But unfortunately, I was lazy and distracted into other things, So I think it certainly does help and give you a good grounding and a good head start for sure. But I don't think it's the be and all of everything, certainly in our industry. Give me the guy who's got that absolute desire, that chip, that monkey on their back that says, I'm hungry to succeed. And they're the guys that I really look for, and you can see them because the vast majority of them have some reason of that burning desire to want to succeed. Give me that guy than the guy who's got straight A's and a first every single day. There's nothing wrong to say, if I get a guy who's got straight A's and a first at university and he's also got that hunger and desire, fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of it will fall on the shoulders of the employer, won't it, to attract new talent. A lot of people perhaps don't even know that they want to get into the industry. We've had a few people on this show who have just kind of fallen into it. It's been like a happy accident. They love, like you say, they love cars. They perhaps started off in marketing or something like that, but they somehow managed to find themselves in the automotive industry. What do you think the industry can do as a whole to attract young and new talent?
I think the industry is doing more recently. I think it's going to be quite interesting to see how COVID-19 plays out, because if you think about we've had a shortage of people for some time now, particularly post the financial crisis. Because if you think about post the financial crisis, we went from a market that was kind of 1.8 million to 2.69 million registrations in 2016. So huge 50% growth in the sector, and of course that has the sort of whole downstream, not only in terms of new car registrations, the downstream impact in our after sales operation. So there has been shortages because I think in the financial crisis people stopped investing in technicians, stopped investing in people, understandably why, because of the situation at that particular point in time. But actually I think we've got I think it's about 130 140 apprentices in our business today. But if you look at what's going to potentially be the new landscape in the sector, everybody has talked about consolidation for forever, and that's been going on forever. It's been happening, if you look at the acceleration since 2002 with the block exemption changes, in 2002 there was only one 1 billion turnover group, which of course was Pendragon back then. Today I think there are about 13 or 14 billion turnover groups. I mean, Sytner, fantastic company, 6 billion. Lucas 5 billion. There are sort of three or 4 billion, and there are sort of three hovering around approaching the 3 billion mark, of which clearly we're one. So I think the interesting thing is the consolidation's been happening. What I think COVID is likely to do is force that consolidation faster than we've ever expected before. So I think that is going to happen now. I think my prediction, and a lot of experts' predictions, were sort of suggesting this is the joys of please wash my hands. Okay, this is Alicia. We're on the air here, but tell Mummy I'll be coming for dinner later.
Tell her not to worry. It's not the BBC.
There you go.
Yeah,
You can see,
you're
guys,
okay.
this is the joys of home working. So.
Yeah, I think that's the reality for so many people at the moment, though, isn't it? Kind of juggling that kind of home life
Daddy,
balance.
can
But
you wash your hands? Daddy, can you wash your hands and come in for tea?
It's
Great,
good,
there you go.
good advice, to be fair.
So,
yeah,
it's great advice. For 30, she should say for 30 seconds or sing happy birthday whilst doing it. But no, back onto the consolidation piece. You should leave that in. Don't cut
Oh,
that
we
out.
will,
It'd be
yeah, definitely,
hilarious.
yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
The joys of working home. So I think my wife will come in now saying, Alicia said come in for tea, and she'll probably that'll be another joy of working at home. So I think most people have been predicting a contraction in the number of outlets. So probably 20 to 25%. Most people sort of generally been sort of say 5, 6, 7 years time. I think this crisis is going to bring that forward, and I think some businesses just won't even open up post when we start to come back from the shutdown period. So what that then does is, well, if you suddenly got say 20% dealerships closed fast, suddenly there isn't actually a shortage of requirement for a peak resource in the sector. So you suddenly sort of say, well, suddenly it's gone from being, dare I say, an employees market where there's shortages and there's demand, to suddenly actually there's a glut of people out there, and that's going to be interesting to see where that whole sort of landscape changes. But I think in terms of attracting talent, it's something we've got to do, because it is a fantastic industry. It's a fantastic industry. It's dynamic. It's fast paced. Yeah. You get to work in fantastic facilities. We work with the biggest brands in the world. And, the products that we work with are fantastic. It's exciting. It's an emotional purchase. I'll be honest with you as well. It's not that hard, is it? Really? I mean, I don't consider work. I never have done. It is enjoyable. If you're selling cars, if you're working on cars, I think you've generally got an interest and a passion about them. So. Yeah.
So when what you say, so there'll be a kind of an influx of people who are experienced in the industry, suddenly available to the kind of the remaining groups. Is there going to be a challenge with the changing roles in the industry, the kind of the changing role of a car salesperson? Does the industry still want those guys who've got 20, 30 years of experience to be doing the same job, or is there going to be more of a shift towards a different sort of person coming into the industry, the kind of the more retail focused, the more customer experience focused people? And is that going to create a challenge, do you think?
I think the industry is quite resilient, and it evolves. It doesn't go bang like that overnight. I mean, look, we've been talking about the internet and the impact of the internet for. I mean, I remember the internet first coming in late 90s. I mean, here we are sort of 21, 22, 23, 24 years later, and we're still talking about it's going to disrupt. Well, it hasn't disrupted our sector for 25 years. You look at the US market. I keep hearing, people are going to, I tell you one thing that's COVID-19 has proved to me and give me. I mean, I was always confident before. I'm even more confident about our business model. Okay, look at the US. The US is probably the most mature market, and it's got fantastic online presence and systems out there. Yet less than 1% of customers today, 25 years on, buy a car online. Bang! They just don't do that. And if ever that was going to come under pressure to be tested, it was during the COVID-19 period, because we went into the lockdown period, and manufacturers, without their retail networks, could not deliver vehicles. And for the first 3 weeks, every manufacturer, every dealer group, including ourselves, sat there saying, "How do we start making the machine work without?" But you can't. It's not easy. It's very difficult to operationalize, because who's going to do the handover? Who's going to do the invoicing? Who's going to do the valeting? Who's going to do the PDI? Yeah. Who's going to get the parts for the technician to do the PDI? Who's going to provide the plates? Who's going to call the customer? Who's going to do the counting of the money? I mean, it's very, very difficult. Who's going to handle the part exchange? So the actual the operationalization of making this work is not easy. It's very difficult to execute. So I actually think I've taken a lot of comfort, because if any opportunity was ever going to come around for people to try and go direct, you would have seen it now. But it's not easy, not on a scale basis. If you're Tesla and you're not selling significant volumes, you can do that. That's their model, and they've set that up from day one. But when you're some of the brands that we deal with, and you look at the number of customers that they have in their vehicle park, it's very difficult to do.
Yeah, I think, like you were saying, all those who questions, it still always comes back to the same thing, which is it's about people, isn't it? It's it's a bit of a cliche. It's a people business. Most businesses are people businesses, but this definitely is.
I think I'm sure. Also, think about it. These are cars. These are emotional purchases. They're not essential. Yeah, if these were essential purchases and they weren't an emotional purchase, then quite frankly, we'd have no brands. We would just have, then Henry Ford would have capitalized on delivering black, Model Ts, and we'd all be driving black Model Ts. But they're an emotional purchase, because why does somebody pay? If you take the Volkswagen Group, phenomenal company. Look at the way they've done their branding. But essentially, if you look at actually I did say to you my wife would come in. We are actually live here, by the way, darling. So this is my wife, by the way, everyone.
Hello.
So
Morning.
we're actually being recorded at the minute, so that's okay.
I want someone to bring my lunch in now, but there's no one else
Yeah.
here.
Okay. So there you go. So there you go. I should put a sign outside saying currently live.
On air, yeah.
On air.
No,
See,
it's
I've got my lunch here as well, haven't I?
We're not taking that out either.
Amazing.
That's
No,
definitely
not at all. So I'm going to put that there. I was going to be tempted to be nibbling it halfway through.
Dash, just coming back to the kind of people side of things. You've said it to yourself already. Really, you've mentioned one thing already. But if you could think of like the three things that make an investable person, because I think that people are investments, aren't they, in this business? Yep. What are the three signs of someone who is highly investable in the automotive industry?
Attitude, number one for me. Ambition, number two. And I would say the other thing would be around probably drive.
Yeah.
You give me that guy. We've got loads of those guys in our business. You spot them a mile out. And more often when you get under the skin of them, the reason they have that drive and that ambition and that desire to want to succeed is because you tend to find, with a lot of successful people, there's a reason why they want to do it. There's a why, and when you start digging it, and I sort of like to I mentor and coach a few of our people internally, and I was chatting to this one young man who's and he'll know who he is if he ends up watching this, and I asked him, why do you want to be successable? It'd just be great. No, why? And then he ditched in, and then you dig, and it's because of his upbringing. I mean, for me, it's the same for me. Almost every successful person that I've met has a reason, because it's not about the money. Nobody cares about the money necessarily, or it's not an ego thing. It's about actually wanting to prove more often than not, or it's because they want to try and do something better for themselves. So for me, my parents died when I was 6 months old. I was adopted, and I wanted to be successful, and I wanted to provide the best that I could for my family, who half of them keep coming in. And I suspect the next one I'll be in a second. So, so I think that's what you tend to find in a lot of people, is that desire.
Yeah, and thinking about the attitude, picking up on that point, because I think it's probably fair to say, and a lot of people again on the guests that we've had on this show have said the same thing, that the industry unfortunately still has a bit of a stigma about it. When you say attitude, what do you mean by that in terms of the right attitude for people coming into the industry?
I think it's going the extra mile. I think it's we've got there's a technician who works at the business that I work at, a young man by the name of Luke. I mean, his attitude is just fantastic. Nothing's ever a problem if if he's always the first to volunteer to do stuff. That's not, some people, you're kissing arse. It's not about that. It's because actually genuinely you can see that he wants to get on. You can see he's just got the right attitude, because the stars always shine, don't they? Ultimately, and the cream always rises to the top. And you come across these people, and they just want to do better for themselves. And by and large, we've got lots of people. And there's nothing, and not everybody has to be like that. Some people are very happy coming to work, doing a 9-to-5 job, and they want to focus on their family, and that's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. But you'll have some people who are very career oriented and want to do better for themselves, and want to get into management, and will go that extra mile and will put themselves out. I'm really, really lucky. I've got lots of those in our business, but that's the culture we try and create at Marshall.
And how do you create that culture? Because you can create it at the top, I guess, but how do you get that down when you've got such a big business with so many people and so many sites in the network? How do you cascade that culture and that belief in the kind of the people and the nurturing? How do you cascade that down to the dealership level?
So that takes time. I think you have to be prepared to stand by your values at all times. Lots of companies have, and it's interesting. I was asked to write a blog just in one of the industry publications about a month or so ago, And I sort of said to the editor, well, what do you want me to talk about? And they said, well, just your thoughts on the virus. And this would have been back end of April. And at that time, just some of the behaviours were kind of a month into lockdown I was watching was the behaviours I was seeing from different companies, the way they were treating their people, the fact that they wouldn't take. A good example would be some companies haven't paid average commissions, and I know quite a few companies haven't paid average commissions, and I understand why management may have not taken that decision to pay average commissions because it was very, very unclear, the wording. So, the whole thing around compulsory commissions is discretionary. And to be honest with you, we looked at it and we looked at and because it wasn't clear, if we were going to take a really hard line, you could say, this is not clear. We can't be seen to take a risk if we get this wrong, because if the HMRC subsequently come in and audit it and say, no, you've overclaimed, then reputationally that could be quite damaging. But we felt on balance, it was more weighted in the favour of being able to claim it. And, we would only do that if we felt confident we were right to claim it. And I said, look, if we couldn't claim this money, are we really going to hang our salespeople out to dry? We would do something to support them, So the delta wasn't necessarily between zero and claiming the money. It was around, well, what was the delta between what we would have done to support our people? Yeah. Now, as it happens, we did get, it's all been proven that it was right to claim. But what about those poor guys who work elsewhere that didn't get that money, where their companies said, no, we're not going to take the risk because it's too risky? And I get why they made that decision. But for me, you either say we care about people and we value them, or you don't. Otherwise, if they're, as I said in that blog, if you don't stick by your values, they're nothing more than just a piece of paper on a PowerPoint slide or something like that, and they just don't mean anything. So I think sticking to your values is really important, and sometimes it's not always easy to do, because sometimes you have to make really tough decisions, even to stand by your values. And for us, we've really looked after our people throughout this crisis. So we've enhanced earnings for people, and it's cost us a big seven-figure sum, to be honest with you, to do that. Our payroll's north of 135 million pounds. So to make even small concessions is a big number, because of the scale that we're talking about. But I think, you either stand by what you're trying to do by your people or you're not. And so I think values are really important. I think communication's a very big part of it. We have done, up until last night, 22 videos since the COVID crisis started. So the first one we did, I think it was 5th of February was the first one we did, and it was just a sort of 1-minute video from me, because people were watching this in Europe, etc., back in February. And then it's amazing to watch the whole timeline, because in February it was literally, telling colleagues, look, I know people are concerned. We're making sure there's sanitizers in your operations. Please wash your hands and follow government guidelines. And then as the kind of crisis unfolded, and the next one was, right, we're thinking of locking the businesses down. Can you please make sure you're ready? And this is what it means. And then literally every single week we've done 2 videos. So I do one on a Tuesday, and then another senior member of the management team does something on a Thursday. So, for example, Richard, who had on the show a few weeks ago, Richard did his version of sort of how to save money. And he just gave lots of examples, because if you remember when the early part of the crisis started in early April, there was opportunity for people to extend their mortgages. So we educate, and it's amazing how many of our people didn't know this. So we had our people are quite competitive, so we always like to run competition. So we ran a competition. Richard ran it. He did a fantastic job saying, right, who can save the most? And we were having competitions, and we had, we would have saved it, actually. It was fantastic. And we had, I think, the highest, somebody say £4,800.
Wow.
And that's net. And that's now £400 a month. The only mistake Rich and I did make on that one is we should have said any savings, Dash and Richard get 10%.
Take like a referral fee, like a commission.
Referral fee, exactly. So, so I think we do a lot on communications and engagement. So we've been we use the Great Place to Work survey, which is highly respected global employee engagement measuring organisation, and we've been with them now since I joined the group in 2008. I brought them in, and for 10 years in a row now, we've had that Great Place to Work status. 6 years in a row, we've been ranked in the best companies to work for in the UK. So that's not me saying we've got a great culture. It's more importantly our sort of 4,500 odd colleagues saying that. So, and the great thing with that survey is some surveys only do a sample test. This surveys everybody, every single person. So, so it's really, really powerful. And I think in terms of getting that engagement, it's been phenomenal. We've the videos. We've had some colleagues sort of saying, please don't stop the videos because my wife's going to miss seeing you every week. So
is that something you'll continue then outside of the lockdown?
Yeah, we did videos anyway. So we did a video, like the last one was done at Christmas, and we do one like if we got a major announcement to do. But I think what we've done is, because it's been, we're conscious people are at home and they're anxious. So we've made sure that we've been able to drive the communication so they know what's going on. So we'll definitely carry that on. I think my initial thinking is we'll do that on a monthly basis moving forward, and we'll see how it goes. And certainly in the sort of, now that we're coming out of the lockdown period, we'll basically probably do it on a more regular basis, probably at least once a week now is what my thinking is. And then we've been doing management meetings. So literally on Tuesday of this week, we had our first ever virtual management conference. So we had probably about 450 managers on Microsoft Team working. So and that was amazing as well. So, and we're going to do another one in 2 weeks' time, just to sort of keep them going, and so the guys know what the key priorities are. And the team have responded phenomenally.
Yeah, it's a different way of working, but like you say, it gives you inspiration for what you can do when things get back to normal, doesn't it? That's the main thing. Dash, if you could go back 5 years and say something to yourself back then, what would you say in terms of the way that the industry has changed or developed since?
I wouldn't say there's anything that I would say is massively changed, because, as we sort of touched on earlier, this industry tends to be very resilient, and it tends to evolve rather than, seismic shocks. Today still people keep talking about disruptors, but we've had, as we were sort of saying earlier, it's very difficult to execute what we do unless you set it up from scratch. So over the years we've sort of seen AutoQuake, we've seen Virgin Cars, we've seen Tesco's, we've seen a number of these people try and come into the market. It's not easy to break into. So I think the model will continue. The thing that has been consistent is the sort of continual consolidation that we've seen, again, which we touched on earlier. I think where we're going to get to is I can see a situation, particularly as a result of COVID-19, where the number of outlets will clearly shrink. I believe that probably 20% in the next couple of years as a result of the crisis, because the weaker ones, were probably just about surviving anyway. So this will sort of address that. And I think what you're going to see is the emergence of super groups. So I can see a situation maybe in 5 years' time, 6 years' time, you'll probably have, 5, 6 super groups, with revenues of somewhere between 5 and 10 billion, So, you're going to see more, mergers, alliances, acquisitions. And I think these sort of 5 or 6 super groups will probably control something in the region of about 50% of the UK is what I can see. And I think there still will be a place for sort of more local regionalised groups, because some of those tend to operate better with sort of owner operators because of the nature of the markets in which you're operating. But I think the big sort of big markets will go to those sort of 5 or 6 super groups that will be there.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what we were talking about in the first half about the culture and building a great culture, do you think that the kind of emergence of super groups, will that dilute that at all, make it harder to create a great business culture?
Well, when we IPO'd the company, a lot of our management were a bit anxious, because sometimes PLCs do have a reputation potentially of not necessarily having the right culture. And I think probably what drives that is, in the past, there have been examples where PLCs perhaps don't have the right culture towards people. And I understand why that happens, because they've got pressure from shareholders. So I completely understand why that sometimes happens. I think one of the things I can remember in 2015, early 2015, standing up in front of the organization, literally 600 people there, and saying, we're not going to change the culture of this organization. I'm absolutely assuring you of that. And I think that real evidence of that is every single year since we've been listed as a publicly traded company which is early 2015, we've been recognised as in the best companies to work for. So in fact, there's an argument to say we've got even better. But I think a lot of the culture is determined by the leadership, the organisation culture, the senior management within the organisation. It's dictated by the board. It's dictated by collectively all of us to sign up to that. And what do we accept in terms of behaviours at a local level? So I think we've been able to retain our culture, and that's despite the fact that we've grown. When we listed the company, we were about 1.1 billion, and our run rate this year would have been somewhere in the region of 2.7 billion. So we've nearly trebled the size of the company, and it's not kind of going from 20 million to 60. This is going from 1.1 billion to, heading towards 3 billion in revenues, and we've still retained that culture. In fact, the culture's got better. So yes, there are always risks when you get bigger, but I think that's up to the leadership of the organisation to make sure that continues to flow through the organisation, and that comes to who do you employ? Do you employ people with the same values? I always take the view I want to recruit people, the best I can get, people who are better than me, and I think if you've got people who are like-minded in terms of their approach of how they treat people, I think that makes a big advantage, because if you recruit that kind of individual who's got confidence, and I'm really lucky, I've got a great team around me, then they do exactly the same as well, because they're not sort of sat there. Because if you recruit down, as I refer to it, then they recruit down, and then you have a really weak business. Whereas if you recruit the very, very best you can get, they do exactly the same. And if you get great people, it makes your life easier as well. So happy days.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you said in the first half, didn't you, about the three kind of elements of a very investable person, and one of them was ambition. I think sometimes people aren't aware how ambitious they are they? I think they come in and they're perhaps a little bit wet behind the ears, as we all are when we first start a career. But what can leaders do to kind of bring that out of people? If you spot someone who or you have a very good inkling that has got something in them, what would you do as a leader to gradually bring that out of them?
I think you've got to try and put things in place to try and encourage them. So one of the things we've been doing for the last few years is we have what's called a Future Leaders Program. So that people have to be nominated to get put on that. So we've got 2 cohorts going through currently. So it's about 30 people from memory, 25, 30 people that are going through it. So you have to be nominated. You have to kind of, because I also believe, attitude has to be both ways. It has to be, one, we have to provide the platform for you to be able to succeed. But for me, 90% of it's got to come from you. It can't just be, oh, Mark, I'm going to pick you to be a future leader. You've got to want to do it yourself, because there's no point trying to push somebody into doing something they don't want to do. And that's got to come from within. So we look for people to sort of want to put themselves forward. But just because they put themselves forward doesn't mean they're going to get through. So there is a strict, we require they do a video. So they have to do which is quite daunting. They have to do a video and explain why they want to do this. So Peter Gardner, who's our head of our Marshall Academy, which is our learning centre, he goes through them, and then we have a panel who basically see who are the people who are going to be selected. And it's always oversubscribed, always, because these are the people. And I think from memory, last year's cohort, I think 60% of them now are in management positions.
Wow.
But it's a 12 months. I mean, it's 12 months of quite intense, and they've got to do this in their own time as well. In terms of the homework and the study, they've still got to be, and they're out of the dealership for 2 days, and they've got to. So it's quite intense.
Yeah.
But they should be considered as a privilege to be on it. But also the other thing is, at the end of it, they have a presentation they've got to do to members of the board, and what they didn't know, the last cohort didn't know. I just turned up. And it was fantastic. I was really, really impressed with the quality of the people, and that gives me a lot of confidence in terms of that pipeline of talent coming through. So it's so companies have got to put infrastructure to be able to develop their people. But I'm a big believer 90%'s got to come from the individual. But equally, when you've got that individual, to not support them through it is not the right thing either. But also, you've sometimes got to be brave. I can think of examples where we've been brave and we've given opportunities to. I can think of one relatively recently where there's a relatively young lady. I won't give too much away, and she's just got a GM job, and if I'm honest, she was probably not quite ready just yet. It's a little bit early, but you know what? What shone through was her sheer determination and ambition, and whilst it was a bit early, we gave her the opportunity, and she's now running a big business, with a decent brand in a big market.
Yep.
And, part of you thinks this is a big step,
Yep.
but, part of it, when you got somebody with those key attributes that you're looking for, then, who are we? I was lucky somebody gave me the opportunity at 25 to run a business. Somebody gave me an opportunity to be CEO at 37. So age is almost academic, really. But, sometimes you have to make a judgment around, does the person have the experience? And in this particular case, they didn't have the experience, but sometimes, you've got to chat these people and be prepared to make that brave decision, Yeah,
it's an very educated guess, isn't it, that you're probably right with this person. And I'm guessing most of the time they probably prove you to be completely right, don't they?
100%.
I suppose it's the same with success, isn't it? I mean, success is measured in lots of different ways. It's not always just about sales figures, is it? I mean, from your perspective, what defines a successful person? You know, what if we put all the kind of the sales numbers and that kind of stuff to one side? How could you be successful? What does that even mean?
I think it's difficult to define success, isn't it? Because for some people, it's how big's your bank account. For some people, it's what demonstration am I driving? You know, because they've got a big thing about cars, and I get that as well. You know, and for some people, it's just about being number one. You know, so different things to different people mean different things. So you know, for me, success isn't. You can't just say it's one particular thing. It's personal to the individual. You know, so for me, I mean, one of the things that I always say in terms of success isn't about, you know, being the number one biggest dealer group in the UK. Doesn't mean anything. You know, as it happens, I think we're really lucky in that we've got a very credible company in Sytner who are an awesome organisation. I think in that case, being number one, you know, is they're a class organisation. So it's fantastic to have an organisation who's biggest by turnover and actually also does really well in other metrics around. They treat their people properly. They're very profitable. They're good with manufacturer relationships because that is what people should aspire to. But for me, it's around, you know, it's a balanced performance success. So for us, our vision around being our vision is to be the UK's premier automotive retail group. And what does that mean? Well, premier means the best, quite simply, and that's not determined by turnover because that's just a vanity thing. But it's around for us. How do our shareholders feel about us? So do we do a good job for our shareholders? And I think we've demonstrated year in, year out, we've done a pretty good, and we've outperformed the market every single time versus the market. And every time we put a stock exchange announcement out, you'll see, you know, every single year we outperform the market. So our shareholders are happy. Secondly, what do our people think of us? We've talked about great place to work 10 years in a row. So our people are happy because there's no point having happy shareholders if it's all built on sand and all your people are miserable and they're all going to leave tomorrow because that's not sustainable. So our shareholders are very, I mean, it's interesting. When we told our shareholders what we had done around enhancing people's pay, because you could say, some shareholders might say, hang on, you're giving away my money there, you know. Actually, quite the opposite. You know, the number of, in fact, what was pleasing, some of our institutional shareholders, they actually said, good on you, right call, right decision, you'll get that paid back in spades. You know, one of our NEDs, when we sent the first video out to say what we were doing in terms of pay, one of our non-exec directors, a person I've got in holding very high regard, he emailed me, said, that's the best decision you've ever made, you know. And so people's really important. I think customers are really important. So how do you treat your customers? Your manufacturer relationships, not only just with manufacturers, but also your business partners. Do you do the right things? Are you fair by your business partners? Yes, you have to have a commercial relationship. Of course you do, but sometimes you've got to give and take. And if you look at a lot of our relationships, they're very long term. We don't just go in and out of partnerships, be that, you know, our oil company's been with us for 10 years. Our finance company's been with us 10 years. Our bank's been with us. Our main bank, Barclays, has been with us since 1909. Our insurance company's been with us 25, 26 years. So, so I think that also how you behave towards your business partners and your brands and your manufacturer relationships is quite important as well. So for us, it's looking at a balanced performance in terms of what defines success. And likewise, when I'm looking at a salesperson, you know, it's not just about actually who sells the most. It's who does it properly, because you know we've all seen those salespeople who sell lots of cars, but then you get about half of them come back because they've not treated the customers properly.
You got the experience to know that, haven't you? I think. And no, I mean, you earlier you mentioned that you don't really see it as a job. I can see why. Obviously, you're incredibly passionate for it. But I'm going to put you on the spot now. If you could pick three things that you love the most about you, I'll call it a job for this purpose. But if you could pick three things that you love the most about it, what would they be?
Variety. You know, no day is the same, and I really, really, really love that about the job. You know, 1 minute you can be doing something like this. 1 minute you can be in a real detailed business review. 1 minute you can be on Monday I'll be on Sky News, for example. So you know, it's quite a formal way of doing things. The next minute you can be having you know, like later on this afternoon, I've got a meeting with my management team, and you know, we have a lot of fun and a lot of you know, teasing each other on that, which is quite good fun. So, and the next thing, you can be talking to a customer. The next thing, you can be talking to one of the CEOs of one of the OEMs. So the variety, I absolutely love. Absolutely love that about the job. I'm never bored. I'm never ever bored. I quite like, and some people might not understand what I mean by this, but I quite like the intensity of the job as well. I mean, my chairman calls me a junkie because he says I'm a workaholic, and he's absolutely right. I am. But actually, I actually like it when it's like million miles an hour, and with the scale of the business and what we do, I quite like it like that. Now, I appreciate not everybody likes that. That's just how I'm wired. So I quite like the intensity of the job, and I also quite like the fact that the people side of it. When you watch the organization and you watch the engagement and you watch how people are. I mean, we don't. I kind of refer to our business as a bit of a family, and our colleagues sort of talk about that as well. So if you look at some of the social media stuff that we have online, you'll see a lot of our people talk about that. When we did this, we had this sort of conference on Tuesday. We had people firing in questions, and we're very open. I mean, one of my colleagues says to me, "I can't believe you're always that open. You answer every single question honestly." And I said, well, you have to, because that's transparency. So, and I think people really appreciate that. So I think the people side of it, I really enjoy. I love, it's like the lady I was just talking to you about earlier, who's just been given this opportunity a few months ago. I'm going to really enjoy watching how she develops. And we've got another one who's in one of our Volkswagen businesses, who's I think it's 20 something when he got the job, and he's and just watching him and his drive, it just I'm getting excited just talking about it now, because it inspires you, because when you see that so the people side of it is really, really good fun as well.
Yeah, it's infectious. All this is infectious. You make me want to work for it as well. I mean, when you put all that together as a whole, you do think, why would people not want to join the industry, regardless of what's happening at the moment?
I don't think they know. And then on top of that, we work with amazing products. I mean, you look at the products that are coming out and the technology. I think the evolution. I think what's going to be exciting for the industry is the evolution we're going to go through in terms of moving towards electrification. So it's a fantastic industry. I just don't think people really fully appreciate it.
Do you think that, as you say, the evolution of the drivetrain and all that kind of stuff, do you think that's going to attract more new talent, or will it have the opposite effect? Or because it's getting, I'm a bit of a geek anyway, so I find everything to do with that, and certainly to do with cars, fascinating. Do you think that will kind of have a more of an effect on mass in terms of getting people attracted towards the industry?
I think so. I think you'll see digitalization will as that continues to evolve. I think the next generation, we'll see cars as very different. We are going to be going into a phase of kind of mobility and the whole digitalization of vehicles. And I was talking to the founder of one of the big insurance companies that's listed. I won't say the name, but he was talking about, he sees in the future the car will almost be like an extension of your home. So literally, as it becomes more autonomous, you'll have you can literally sleep in the car, you can watch movies and stream movies in the car. So literally, it will become having big TV in there or whatever. So I think as the technology evolves, as 5G comes in, as electrification comes in, as we get to level 4, I don't think we'll ever fully get to sort of level 5 autonomy, but I think as level 4 autonomy comes in, I think more and more you'll see that. And I think that will attract younger people, because I think, like we all like our tech and gadgets and phones and everything. So I think you will see a different kind of individual want to come in, and again, it's an exciting industry for these kids, because they with all the technology that we've got.
Yeah, I'm conscious of your time, and we could talk to you all day, to be honest. But I'm also conscious that your lunch is getting.
I was going to say your lunch is. Yeah,
sandwiches are going stale, aren't they? We don't want that at all. Just before we go, obviously, aside from people watching and learning from the Armchair show, we love to ask guests where they get their inspiration from and who they learn from. Can you think of someone that you could recommend that people, anyone I suppose in the industry who is either just starting out or is experienced, should perhaps tune into either a podcast or a book or something that you've read recently? Who's inspired you recently?
Oh, there are so many. There are so
Can you
many.
pick one?
I like Tony Robbins. So I like Tony Robbins. He's a bit American. Some people might not get it, but you need to ignore the American accent for a minute and just listen to the words and say, okay, what can I learn from this? So that's just one. You've asked for one, but I would say, rather than actually latching onto somebody on a podcast, what I would say is, if you're in a business, what what you should go and do is work out who the guys who you can learn from, and don't be scared, because a lot of these guys will be more than happy to help you. More than happy to help you. So don't be scared to ask that question. There's a story that I remember getting my first GM job. I don't know, I was 25 years old and didn't really know what the hell I was doing. I didn't understand accounts, and I just went to speak to the financial controller for the group, a guy called David Hammond. He's actually then became CEO of Camden Ventures, a very successful guy. And he tells a story of when he knew me from when I was 25, and he said Dash was the only general manager or manager who ever came to ask me about the accounts. Wow. And our finance teams are desperate to help our managers. There's nothing they would love for people to go and ask the questions. Our management population, I know they would be. So what I say is, if you want to get on, go and ask the questions. Because that's how you grow. That's how you'll develop. So you've got plenty. You don't need to be downloading Tony Robbins. If you want to support you and supplement you, great, because that's going to help your mindset and your attitude. But actually, you've got plenty of decent leaders in and around your business that you can get advice from. And over the years, I've been really blessed. I work with some amazing leaders. So that's what I'd say.
Such good advice. I think these days as well, you can reach beyond that, can't you? Because it's easier in inverted commas to contact people via LinkedIn or on social media. So even if you have an influencer who you want to get in touch with, you might as well try. It's never been a better time to do that than now, really, I think. But great advice. Dash, thanks so much for coming on.
Good to see you guys.
Great to chat with you. And hopefully we'll get you on again soon.
100%. Take care, guys.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Brilliant.
And that leaves it for me to say thank you again for watching. We really appreciate it. You can find us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We are literally everywhere. Just search for The Armchair Show and please subscribe. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Thank you.